What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTB Ravens Media, bringing Ravens content every single day. If you want to see that daily Ravens content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below and hit the notification bell as well. If you want to get notified every single time I upload a brand new video. In this video, it's actually going to be the first segment of our Trust the Bank. We're going to be talking about none other than DeSean Jackson. Joshua, I'll let you go first. Ravens brought him in today. They signed him. He's technically on the practice squad, but every new player gets signed to the practice squad, then they get elevated. Hopefully he comes soon. But what are you thinking about DeSean Jackson to Baltimore?
I'm speechless, and not in a good way. Listen, Ravens family, I know everybody wants Lamar Jackson to get the help. I want Lamar Jackson to get the help. But honestly, the core of wide receiver that's on their back end, but still like low key in their prime, it's not the same as the core group that we had when we had Joe Flacco. I mean, we had Steve Smith, Derek Mason, and Quan Bolden, who helped lead us to a Super Bowl. Now you done gave Lamar Jackson a Dez Bryant that barely even saw the field. There was one game where Dez Bryant could have damn near had 50 yards because the corner played so deep on him, and they didn't even target the man. Now you bring in DeSean Jackson, I guess, who y'all now believe that still is a deep threat. He's now 35 years old. I mean, granted, he has had a great career, racking up over 10,000 yards, over 50 touchdowns, played over maybe 170 games around that ballpark. But
Yeah.
when DeSean Jackson was really hot, Lamar Jackson was 11 years old. So at this point, I'm just trying to figure out how much in the tank does DeSean Jackson has left to help this ailing wide receiver core.
Yeah. I mean, when I look at this team, when I look at DeSean Jackson, does DeSean Jackson make this team better? Yes, I think so. But at the same time, it's again, this is, I mean, honestly, it's like the 15th offseason in a row. But I'll say in recent memory, it's like the third offseason in a row, maybe the fourth offseason, where the Ravens go out and they do things, and we're like, okay, you're trying to get better, and you try and sign these free agents. I'm going to give them a pass when they draft guys in the first round. I'm okay with that. If the Ravens want to say, no, we're not going to sign somebody, we're going to use our first round pick. Like when they drafted Hollywood, I'm not upset at them not going out and getting a big name wide receiver because the expectation was this guy's going to be our new number one. Did it turn out that way? Kind of. I don't think that Hollywood pick was terrible. Obviously, there were other players in that draft class that were a little bit better. But we got a wide receiver that could play. Then Rashad Bateman, we draft him. It's like, you know what? We didn't sign Julio, but that's okay. We got Rashad Bateman. He should be our guy. But this offseason, there was still a question mark in this offseason of the Ravens wide receiver core with Hollywood and Bateman and Duvernay. And it was like, okay, is this going to be good enough for Lamar? And it was like, I think we were both pretty happy with it. We were like, okay, this is solid. And then we traded away Hollywood, and it was like, okay, we got to be going after a wide receiver in this draft.
Yeah.
There were guys that we loved. George Pickens, he's still available when we traded him away. There were plenty of other players. I can't think of any other off the top of my head, but there were guys that we thought of and we're like, hey, we can go after them. Romeo Dubes, Wan'Dale Robinson. Those are a couple of guys. We actually just saw Wan'Dale playing for the New York Giants. Shout out to him. But we were like, we're going to get someone. And we don't. And it was like, okay, we didn't draft anyone. We drafted 2 tight ends. Maybe we'll sign someone in free agency. We really don't. I mean, we went into the entire free agency period and we lost Sammy Watkins and we went, okay, season's about to start. We'll sign DeMarcus Robinson. And at that point, that's a good signing because it's like that was the only guy left. Like they wait so that they wait long enough to the point where the excuse can be there was no one better available. It's like, well, they were, you just didn't sign them. Then they signed, and then when you signed someone, there was no one else that was better. like what happened with Demarcus Robinson. I mean, DeSean Jackson, I would say, yeah, it's probably the best guy they can get that could play right away. Obviously, I think Odell is the best player on the trade on the market, but it's kind of a question mark with him right now. Will he be able to play? DeSean Jackson's like, okay, I think he can still be a deep threat. I think he's still got the speed. We saw some big plays for him with the Raiders last year and the Rams. And I will say, I believe in both of those games, he had like 50-plus yard touchdowns in his debuts for those teams.
Oh, well.
Like, DeSean Jackson in the debut is like, I mean, if he doesn't play well in the debut, it's over for the Ravens. Because he also, when he returned to Philadelphia, his first game in his return to Philadelphia, I believe it was with Carson Wentz, he had like a 50-plus yard touchdown with that one as well. So it was like for some reason, DeSean Jackson in his debut, he likes to make a splash. But overall, when you make a signing like this, it's like, okay, that's the best they could have done, which is true. But at the same time, the offseason, the entire time, all they say is, we're happy with our wide receiver core. We like the guys that we have.
Yeah. And
it's very clear that this Ravens receiving core, when they are all fully healthy, is it horrible? No, it's playable. Bateman and Duvernay can be a decent one too. But if one of them gets hurt, this is like the worst receiving core in the NFL all of a sudden because of one guy going down.
They don't know what to do.
Exactly.
I don't know if you saw it recently, but the fader to Mark Andrews against the Giants, I don't know who was on the left side, but the routes end up crossing each other. Not on no type of shrug, not the type of pick the defender off and open them, but they literally bumped into each other.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, I know we talked about Lamar having a bad game. Lamar, yes, he did have a bad game, but there is still some issues in house that we still are not really addressing. There's still the issue of the route running, the routes that's being made for certain plays. I mean, and then when the wide receivers are not getting the separation that you think that they're supposed to get, it's putting them in a bind. I know Lamar Jackson still wants to prove that he's a quarterback, but at this point in time, I'm not going to say it's a sink or swim type of situation because it's still early. But he has to, instead of keep on constantly thinking, he does need to react. I mean, right now, this DeSean Jackson move, it seems a little desperation. What is the true health behind, Rashad Bateman? Are we going to ever see him for the rest, some point of the season? Or is he truly done? I mean, when they start making moves like this, something else is going on in the water, and they try to keep it under wraps. And then, when it gets to week 8, week 10, oh, yeah, the politically correct answer for Jonathan Harbaugh is going to be something like, oh, well, we have been trying to medically work with Rashad Bateman and it hasn't been getting any better. And, we just going to want our young guy to go ahead and get his rest, something like that. If you knew that was the case, why haven't you or Eric DeCosta or Greg Roman been aggressively making some type of move to reach out to see about a Quez Watkins, maybe even a Mooney out of Chicago Bears? Someone that's still good where you can get the low price, because we know that the Ravens love to shop cheap, even though Steve Bisciotti and the other owner for the Commanders are listed in Forbes 400 as the top richest people in the state of Maryland. And Steve Bisciotti's worth about $6.3 billion, McConnell. So I don't know where the money's going.
Like, the thing is with this is it's like I talked about this after the Dolphins game. And I was like, when something like that happens, you have to make a drastic change, right? You got to fix something. You can't just go out there and be like, oh, yeah. Marlon Humphrey actually tweeted out the quote from, I think it was Einstein, but he tweeted it out and he goes, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And he tweeted that out, I think, about, himself and the way that the defense is playing. They're giving up these late touchdowns. They're expecting things different. I don't think it was a shot at anybody. I think he was saying, hey, we need to do better. We need to do something different on defense, and we'll get it figured out. But the Ravens are, I swear, every week they come back and they're like, yeah, this time at halftime we're gonna hold on to that lead. Like this time we're gonna keep it. They need to do something different. And I said, you either got to make a big trade, a big signing, or you got to make a big firing. That is how you make change happen, because it doesn't get people antsy. I think the Ravens are too content with everything. They're too content. They're just kind of sitting back and they're like, okay, things are bad right now, but it's going to be fine. You know, that can happen in the workplace. That can happen in sports. But, you know, you think about a guy like John Harbaugh, he's like, yeah, we're hitting our numbers. We're technically winning in the AFC North at 3-3, which is a terrible record. We should be way better. But, you know, we're all right. You know, he went into media and was like, we control our own destiny. Like, he was very content with the situation. No, you need to go up to that press conference and be like, this is unacceptable. We need to be playing better. We need to execute better, or things are not going to work out for us. But instead, he's just like, yeah, I'm feeling good about our spot right now. You know, we're just kind of working through some things. I don't know. Blowing major leads in 3 games. 3 games. They had a 10-point lead with 6 minutes left against the New York Giants. They were up 17 points with a minute or 3 minutes left in the first half against the Buffalo Bills. They were up by 20 something points against. They allowed 28 points in the fourth quarter. They scored 3. So they're up by 25 points with 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter against the Miami Dolphins. And all those leads evaporated. That is not being content. You know what happens in the playoffs? You play against really good football teams. You play against guys like Joe Burrow. You play against guys like Josh Allen. You play against guys like Patrick Mahomes. What do all of those guys do? They all come back and win games because they have explosive offenses.
And score quickly.
Exactly.
Quickly.
So when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, they were down by 20 plus against the Texans. They were down, I want to say 20 plus again the next week that they played. I don't remember exactly who it was. And then they were down big in the Super Bowl. And they were able to come back because they kept fighting. The Ravens would easily be the team that the Chiefs come back against. We've already seen they're easily the team that the Buffalo Bills come back against. We saw them as the team that the Miami Dolphins easily came back against. Something needs to change, and it has to be drastic. Making these, you know, it's like somebody's leg got, you know, has fallen off their body, and someone grabs a small Band-Aid, and they're like, I got it. This will fix them up. It's like, yo, you got to get this guy to the hospital, and you got to, like, you know, do some things that are hardcore. And instead, EDC and John Harbaugh are just throwing Band-Aids at it.
Exactly.
Stop throwing Band-Aids, and you got to do something. I don't know exactly what that is. That could be a big trade. That could be firing a coach. I can't make that decision. I know a lot of. I would prefer you fire Greg Roman or John Harbaugh, or if you fired both. You know, you're probably only going to do one, so it's probably fire. I would assume it's fire Harbaugh, just because Eric DeCosta is not going to fire the offensive coordinator. I think they would then promote somebody within to be the head coach. But you. Or you make a big trade, right? You know, you bring in a Brian Burns, right? You know, one of these guys that's on the market, something like that. And it's more difficult, I think, to do the trade because of the salary cap and things like that. But if you're going to fix this, you know, content nature, signing DeSean Jackson, that's not fixing this team.
Not at all. We're still bleeding. And if anybody watches this episode, please don't say that we lost out on Robbie Anderson. Please do not drop in the comments that we lost out on Robbie Anderson, because we did not lose out on Robbie Anderson. All of Robbie Anderson is a younger version of DeSean Jackson with way more problems. We need, at this point, we don't need speedsters. If we're going to keep on running this style of offense, we need more complete style wide receivers, more savvy route running technician style wide receivers. We don't always need the non-route guy. We never had too many of those. We need playmakers, real playmakers.
Absolutely. I actually tweeted out because someone was like, man, we got Deshaun Watson, not Deshaun Watson, DeSean Jackson. It's so exciting. And I was like, yeah, Greg Roman's going to have him blocking. Like, because that's what the Ravens are going to try and do. They're going to ask these players to block. And we signed Andy Isabella, I think, is a good deep threat.
Yeah.
They signed DeSean Jackson. I think he's a good deep threat. They're good. At least DeSean Jackson's a vet, and he can talk to Rashad Bateman. He can talk to those wide receivers and maybe be a leader in that locker room. That's something Robbie Anderson absolutely would not do. And also, Robbie Anderson has like major problems. Also, I think he had a DUI the week that he got cut. Like, he has some off the field trouble that he has been battling, in addition to him getting thrown off the field by his own team, which is pretty bad. That didn't even happen to Antonio Brown, I don't think. I think Antonio Brown left by himself.
Yeah, Antonio Brown left by himself. He was pretty much because he was being forced to come back into the game. And he was like, Ben said, like, yo, I'm hurt. Like, I can't go back in. So there's that.
So, like, overall, I'm not mad at the DeSean Jackson signing. I like the DeSean Jackson signing. I'm mad at the fact that we're signing DeSean Jackson as if it's going to like make some major difference, right? Because he's not going to go out there. He's not a 1,000-yard receiver. He's not going to be a dominant force. Yeah, he could get some snaps every game, 3, 5 snaps, something like that. But I mean, we got major problems, and the Ravens seem like every week they're trying to cover things up. Oh, we signed AJ Klein. Hey, look at this, Andy Isabella, DeSean Jackson. Don't look at our coaches. Don't look at our roster or anything else.
What's another thing that's troubling? How can you ever expect a wide receiver to actually grow and develop in the NFL if you're constantly switching them in and out because of said play? Where's the true growth and development? I mean, the only person right now that's showing true growth and development is Devin Duvernay, and we're seeing it right before our eyes. I know James Prochet is coming back from an injury, but at the same time, even when James Prochet was not injured, how many times was he was a healthy scratch? There's no way in hell. If you get 3 catches of 50 yards or 7 catches of 70 yards, you should be a healthy scratch the next game. Stop taking away from these young men. Let them play. If they do bad, sit them down. I respect that. But if they're doing good, let's keep the good times rolling.
100%. But